You're listening to Business Stories with Ryan Arcaracci, where I speak to business professionals from all walks of life. Thanks for listening, and let's get to it. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Business Stories podcast. It is 2025. This is the first episode of the new year. So I'm really excited about this one. And as you know, I work with entrepreneurs from all walks of life. I work with a lot of entrepreneurs myself, consultants, home service people, you name it. I probably worked with them. My guest today is Mike Andes. He's an American entrepreneur founding Augusta Lawn Care, a franchise with over 150 locations all over the world, in the US, Canada, Australia. And Mike started working in business at the age of 11 years old, which is phenomenal, Mike. Mike, thank you for being here. Tell us about how you became an 11-year-old who wanted to work and start a business. I'm really curious about how that all happened. So tell us about your background. That's pretty wild to me.
Yeah, realistically, it was more a matter of like I saw that as a way to pay my way through college,
Right.
and I saw college as kind of my way out of my family's kind of financial past. And so I was going to become a doctor, and so obviously that takes a lot of schooling and education. So I knew I have to start early. So I actually started college when I was 13 years old and went to university pretty early. But
Yeah.
throughout that whole time, I paid my way through college using the lawn care.
Yeah. That's crazy. So you started college at 13. How
Yeah.
did that exactly happen? That is, I mean, sounds like you're a pretty smart guy, I'd say. So tell me, how did that exactly come about?
Yeah, more or less just a couple grades were skipped, and then I get a couple years in one at home for one of my years. But it was really the objective was I knew I wanted to get to becoming a physician, and then eventually then go do surgery. That requires like a fellowship, a residency. You're looking at an additional 10 years after your undergrad if you're going really specialized. And so that was kind of my path since I had been very young. And I was a
Yeah.
classic kid with skeletons and muscle charts all over the bedroom. But then as time went on, when I was 18 years old, I finished my undergrad for pre-med and was planning to go to medical school. And then I went to Africa, spent 6 weeks over there in Kenya, just outside Nairobi, in Kawangware and Tigoni. I was just like at orphanages, different clinics, and it was pretty phenomenal. I was able to like do all sorts of procedures like birthing, surgery. I spent a lot of time in the pediatric burn unit there, and
Mhm.
so that's phenomenal. Be able to do all the different procedures. Obviously, over in the U.S., I would never be allowed to do those things. When I came back to the U.S., though, I realized that that wasn't how I was going to be, and I was going to be, doing a lot more paperwork, insurance-related things, as well as probably doing the same 4 or 5 procedures if I was going to go really specialized in surgery. And
Yeah.
so that's when I decided, hey, like I don't want to do this for the rest of my career, and furthermore, the only skill I really have is lawn care. So that's when I dropped out, started Augusta Lawn Care, and I guess the rest is history.
So tell us about that transition. You started Augusta Lawn Care. Obviously, you were a kid mowing lawns, but that's a big step from being a kid mowing lawns to actually building a business, and now it's expanded to over 100 locations. So tell us a little bit about the lessons you learned in that process for you as a young adult at that point.
Yeah, so like the first couple years while I was starting Augusta Lawn Care, I actually did my master's in business administration at the university at night. So I did that at night, and then during the day was building the business. And a few years into the business, I realized that I didn't have any systems and procedures, and the business really ran on me working 80, 90 hours a week, and that's really what was propping it up. And so at that point, we were doing almost $1 million in revenue, but ultimately like not a lot of profit. And what actually woke me up to that fact was the fact we had a workplace accident. I was underneath a dump truck. My hoodie got caught in the PTO, and I had a kind of a close encounter with death. I had to be in the hospital for a little bit, and
Wow.
so for a couple weeks, I was basically realizing that my business didn't have any systems, and without me, it didn't run. I was on the hospital bed, literally video calling and FaceTiming my crew to walk them through the next job. And in that time, I basically started drawing a lot of what I had learned in business school and like how do I actually think of from first principles thinking, how do I recreate how to do estimates for lawn care and landscaping? How do I think about performance-based pay structures for my laborers, and really started to create systems and procedures for the business. And then that's when I started creating content, just kind of sharing my story of how I turned the business around, and within a matter of a couple of years was able to make it very profitable. And I just made it all free, landscapebusinesscourse.com, because that's what I wanted when I was 18. I wish someone would have had that. So um, that was kind of the evolution into content. And then I realized a few years later that like people didn't listen. They looked at me as a content creator. They looked at me as a consultant. But ultimately, I didn't have any skin in the game. I didn't share their own brand. They looked to me as a competitor. And so that's when I decided we were going to franchise the business. And that was about 5 years ago. And so now we have about 170 locations. And with those owners, I share their same brand. We share the community, and they know that like I have skin in the game with them. And so when I say something, we create a system, we create a procedure, we create an SOP. Like the adherence to it is much greater.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. I mean, there's a lot of independent landscaping businesses out there, a lot of one person businesses. Growing up in that and building the business, what are some of the biggest mistakes you see people making, and or what is hindering their growth overall in that industry? And I guess not just that industry, but any home service industry.
Yeah, like from 0 to 500,000, usually the skill that's required is just selling. Like the ability to just go pound the pavement, put out door hangers, knock on doors, talk to people on Facebook, especially if you don't have money. Like there's so many ways to still get leads. And
Yeah.
so many times getting past that $500,000 marker is just can you do sales and marketing?
Yeah.
And then really beyond that marker, 500,000 in revenue, it just becomes a leadership game. Like can you hire, attract, retain employees for the long term? Can you compensate them correctly, put them in places of leadership and continue to scale? And so most people don't have the sales inertia to even get past 500,000. And then
Right.
only a small percentage, single digit percentage actually cross the $1 million marker, mostly because the leadership skills are not there that are required to scale that size.
Right. So what do you suggest? I mean, obviously you have your courses and your website and all the free materials and things, but can you give us a little bit of a look at how do you help people develop those skills, and how can they approach improving that? Because it may not be built in for a lot of people, and they need help, or a little bit of a shove to get to that point, but they may have the drive to get to that point. What do you suggest to really get that ball rolling?
Yeah, I think there's different levels. Like if you're at the very beginning stages of entrepreneurship, like I think the first stage of building more wealth or generating a bigger business is like are you actually putting the reps in? Are you actually putting the effort that's required? And starting a business is not easy. And so the notion that you're going to somehow do this on the side or you're going to do this 2 or 3 hours a day and build this big business is ludicrous. And so
Yeah.
the goals and aspirations that we spit outside of our mouth, but yet our actions don't align with it is asinine. And so I really believe that for someone just getting started, like there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, if I work for 3 more hours every single evening, that's a 50% increase in the output that I have over the course of a week. If I work Saturdays, that's a 20% increase in the output of my week. And so I think many times we look to, hacks, efficiency gains, software, what are the kind of the things you do for your morning routine, was like just work more hours.
Yeah.
And that, I think that doesn't necessarily serve you in the long term, but to get started, to go from 0 to 1, I think that's what's required.
Right. Right. And you talk a lot about too, professionalism in home services. And you said you're on a mission to kind of elevate professionalism. What do you feel like home service industry professionals need to do to up that level of professionalism, or develop a more professional, I guess, environment? What are some things you can recommend there?
Yeah, like I think, when it comes to landscaping, I think the notion is that we show up in a beat up truck, it's leaking oil, our, cut off shirt, don't speak English, can't communicate with the customer, or slipping an invoice underneath the front door mat. As I kind of look at home service in general, I think the 2010s was really like the difference between the professional and the amateur was probably like, did they have a website that was really good,
Yeah.
mobile friendly, et cetera, and did they accept credit cards? Um, I think in the 2020s, the distinguishing factor of the professional is who has instant pricing on their website and can do estimates over the phone and give those prices to the customer so they don't have to meet with them in person. I
Hmm.
think in the 2030s, as we look forward a decade or so, that's when AI, robotics will really start to become more mainstream in the labor industries. But a lot of people are getting into that right now. Like it's just not there yet for
Yeah.
most of us. And so what we could be focused on more so in terms of what actually moves the needle for our customers and for our business is likely trying to do your pricing over the phone or from your website to prevent the friction of having to meet with customers in person.
Right. Do you feel like, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this, because we talk about AI and how it's going to be the future, and it is what's going on now, but there's also an argument that it's eliminating that human to human interaction. And you're talking about, well, we can give prices over the phone. Do you feel like that's going to diminish the human connection in some way with business? Do you feel like, because I hear it a lot, people are saying people still want to do business with other people and have that human connection, and I feel like we're losing that a little bit now. Do you think that's an issue?
Well, whether it's an issue humanistically speaking or socially is one thing, but I think customer behavior speaks a lot louder.
Right.
There's $1.29 billion worth of revenue generated on Amazon every single day, and none of us know those sellers that we are
Right.
buying from, and we
Right.
do it because it's convenient, comes to us fast, and not necessarily even the cheapest, but there's reviews, it's easy to understand, it's on our mobile app, it gets delivered the way we want it to. So like I genuinely believe that this will become less and less of an issue. And yes, we can be romantic until we're blue in the face about having a personal connection. But the reality is that the customer wants to be able to go on your website, check out, put their card on file, and never see you again because we're
Right.
solving a problem for the customer. They don't want to know about you. Like,
Yeah.
we can be like, yes, there's personal connection. Yes, people want to buy from the people they know, like, and trust. But
Yeah.
ultimately, you buy from a company like Amazon who you know, like, and trust because they've performed on the services in the past that you expected of them and they
Yeah.
solve problems for you. And
Yeah.
so I believe that doing that will separate the pros from the noobs. And the noobs will constantly cry about how, you know, big businesses coming in, and that's why people cry about Amazon coming in and taking over. It's like, look, the customer will vote with their dollars, and the dollars are going to flow to the person that has over the phone pricing, has AI, is answering their phone 24/7, is getting back to the customer, has their pricing available and transparently on their website. And to fail to do that is simply going to be the legacy of Sears and other retailers that failed to go online when Amazon was constantly bararding, changing the game when it comes to e-commerce.
I actually agree with you a lot. And I just, this is like, because I'm totally in the same boat with you. I believe that AI and automation is totally going to enhance the customer experience. And I don't think a lot of businesses understand that that's ultimately what it's about. It's about enhancing the customer experience, getting them what they want. And you're right. The money's going to flow to where, where the customer deems, right? So, I completely agree with you there. I want to ask you too. You've grown Augusta Lawn Care to over 150 locations. I'm sure there were ups and downs with that and challenges along the way. What do you think? What were the strategies that were pivotal in achieving that expansion? And what kind of advice can you give others out there who are looking to grow to that level?
Yeah, I'd just say like, build a franchise that you would join. I was a franchisee before becoming a franchisor. And so, do the things that you wish your franchisor would be doing. And so when I started, I know Augusta Lawn Care and and franchised it, it was like, okay, I don't want to have a royalty. I want my initial fee back if I follow the systems. I want to be able to leave at any time if I don't think that the fees are worth it. And that's what we've done with Augusta and just built a anti-franchisor kind of approach when it comes to what's best for the franchisee and building it in that way.
Yeah, that's great. And what are you learning from the top performing franchisees you have? I'm sure you have franchisees that are at various degrees of success, right? What are you learning from the ones that are really performing well? What are you learning from the ones that aren't performing as well? How are you constantly evolving your strategies and your plans to continually make this, even more successful than it is?
Yeah, like the goal is always for them to stay in business. Ultimately, because we have a flat fee model and we don't have royalty, it's simply a function of like how do I keep them in business. And so the ones that fail are the ones that typically don't get to that $500,000 marker in annual revenue.
Yeah,
And to my knowledge, I don't think anyone that's got above that marker has ever quit,
yeah,
or failed in any way, and so or even left. And so getting them to that point is our number one focus, whether it be from marketing, advertising, support side of things. How do we find them general managers? So you're always just trying to solve the next problem for them, to grease the funnel to get as many people past that point of activation. So that's really been our focus. And with any franchise, it's a constraint. There's certain constraints that are put on your freedoms as an entrepreneur when you become a franchisee. And the same way that, if you're trying to get a pet across to Europe, you're gonna have to put it inside of a kennel, and it's not gonna be fun. The dog isn't gonna like it.
yeah,
However, by putting it in the kennel, you're giving its best chance and likelihood of arriving at the destination successfully and safely. And so when
yeah,
it comes to a franchisor or any franchise business, it's just a function of, you are giving up the freedoms in exchange for a walked path. We know the constraints of that kennel will get them there safely, and that is a successful business. And
yeah,
so that's really what you have to rely on as a franchisee. And I've been a franchisee before I was a franchisor, and that's why I believe in it a lot.
yeah, yeah. I want to talk a little bit about too, like adversity, like you talked about, before you had the injury and you were trying to manage the business while dealing with your injury. How do you approach adversity and struggle through business ownership, and what do you recommend to those that are really trying to overcome those hurdles and those issues that they have personally? What advice can you give about that?
Yeah, like I think every individual is unique, and there's definitely like, therapy, or you can get mentorship and help and coaching. But like I think that the ingredient that many of us try to avoid and try to get around is simply the function of the hours that we put into every single day, and the
Yeah,
amount of effort and the brute force that's required to get a business off the ground is substantial and estimated. And so I think focusing on that is actually where I would usually start,
yeah,
because the it's something you can control. Like I can control how many hours I work in a day. I can control how much output I have. I cannot control outside circumstances, the economy, whether or not I was abused, whether I had trauma in my past, whether I have depression. Like there's so many things outside of your control. The chemicals of your brain are weird. And so I would just focus on what can you control, and then seek help. Be humble enough to be able to realize you don't know everything, and that there's other people that probably walk the same path as you, and get around those people as much as possible.
right, right. What do you look for in terms of a franchisee? I mean, obviously, I'm sure like many franchises, even the ones I work with, there's a pretty heavy vetting process. Um, what have you found have been the most successful in terms of just, you know, the ones you've vetted or looked at or qualified? Who are you looking for, and who do you find is the most successful with your franchise?
Usually for us, it's really been because when we first started the franchise, we allowed people in that were just hungry, didn't have a lot of capital. The challenging part is sometimes if you don't have enough capital, you can't get to $500,000 in annual revenue fast enough, and it
Yeah,
can take you longer. And so
yeah,
we've really been our biggest thing has just been like allowing the financial requirements to be the threshold of whether or not someone can afford to get in. But then from more realistically, it's like, are they a good fit for the culture of Augusta Nation and the other owners? Are they going to give more than they take? And so when you're building any community, whether it be a government or a church or a family, the contributing partners or pieces and components of that organization, the strength of it will be determined by the ratio of people who give versus the people who take.
mhm,
And so as long as you have a society or an organization where more people are taking than they are giving, eventually that'll lead to ruin. And so when it comes to bringing people into the franchise, we're constantly looking for, is this person looking to take everything from all the other owners and the coaching and materials, and those other things are positive. There's so many resources, but then there's other people that want to join a community that they know that collectively they're stronger if they all contribute, and that's really what we look for.
yeah. That's great. I was looking at your website. I know there's a lot of free content and courses and things. And on there, it's talking about being a home service millionaire. And I think a lot of people listening, especially home service professionals, want to know, what can they get from that? If they go to your website, you're doing a lot of speaking gigs, you've got a lot of things. Tell us a little bit about, like, give us a taste of what's available, what you can learn, and how you can really get in the right path with this.
Yeah, if you go to MikeAndes.com, a lot of courses and stuff are on there. It's all free. So like landscape business course is the course I wanted when I was 18 years old to actually build a landscaping business. MBA for entrepreneurs is basically I took all my MBA and I basically consolidated it all down for what a small business owner needs. Again, it's all free. I have MikeAndes.com/course, which helps you turn around your business if it's struggling. It'll walk you step by step of how to turn it around. And yeah, on YouTube, we basically record when we turn around businesses, and we kind of turn into kind of a bit of a drama slash educational piece. And so those are fun to watch if you ever have time.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Um, I always like to kind of wrap it up and look at, go back in time and look at yourself as like an 18-year-old kid and where you are now. Like if you could go back in time, and this kind of ties into my other question about just advice for aspiring entrepreneurs and current entrepreneurs. Like if you go back in time and talk to yourself as that young kid, what are some of the things or lessons you would tell yourself?
I think the biggest thing would just be like get around other people that are doing what you're doing and have done what you're wanting to do.
Yeah,
Being in those rooms, whether it be conferences, whether it be masterminds, franchises, Facebook groups, like you name it, like get around the people that are doing what you want to be doing, and the people that are doing it with you.
yeah,
And I think tapping into that will keep you through the low lows of entrepreneurship and small businesses, just running one, and hopefully ultimately the last man standing will win. And so it's much more a game of attrition and like who's the last man standing instead of who's the strongest. And I think doing that is easier when you have other people around you setting the pace for you, encouraging you, lifting you up when you're down.
yeah. And will you be attending? I mean, you're in franchising. There's the IFA conference coming up in Vegas next month. Are you going to be going to that by chance? I'm just curious.
No, yeah, we don't really do any sort of trade shows or anything like that. So I haven't given to any of them yet.
Okay, okay. Well, this is great, Mike. I really appreciate it. Tell us again, just really quick, if you don't mind, so people listening can know where to go, how to find you through your website. You have a LinkedIn. Where can people contact you or learn more directly?
Yeah, just anywhere MikeAndes.com is there, but anywhere Mike Andes for social media. YouTube would be the best place just to kind of get all the free content. But I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah. Thank you, Mike. Have a great rest of your year. Okay.
Thanks, Ryan. Take care.
Hey, this is Ryan with the Business Stories Podcast. And if you're a franchisor, franchise consultant, broker, or just a small business owner, you've got to check out clienttether.com. It's an amazing sales automation tool that is revolutionizing the industry. If you want to learn more, go to clienttether.com and inquire within.